Hi, this is Joseph Lebrec for ActiveTuts Plus, and today I'm going to be doing a demonstration of how to use the open source media framework's Strobe Media Playback video player. How to use it, how to configure it, and also how to create custom skins for it using Fireworks and some skin XML. So the first thing we're going to want to do is have a look at OSMF itself. So you can find everything you need to know about the open source media framework at osmf.org. And what is the open source media framework? Well, it tells us right here. It's a framework that's used to simplify the development of media players. And by media players, they don't mean just video. They mean video, audio, images, SWIFTs, just about anything, any type of media that you can consume within the Flash player, OSMF can handle. And OSMF is simply a framework. So there aren't any real, visual components to it until you actually build something with it. So it's meant for people who are developing video players, media playback components, and want to build that on a solid foundation. For those people who want to, just have an open source video player that they can use that's been tested against industry and so forth, they can use what's called the Strobe Media Playback, and that's what we're going to have a look at today. You can see here we've got a little bit about the open source media framework and also the Strobe Media Playback on this page. So Strobe Media Playback, it's what you see right here, this little player. So it's got
media framework is a software framework that
it's got basic playback controls. You can scrub around, mute, and so forth. You can also do full screen. And it has a basic time readout. And a lot of these options are configurable. So let's get started here and go to Strobe Media Playback. And this takes us to the Strobe Media Playback page. And from here we can read all about the different types of configuration options that you can use. So things like the height and the width, of course. Whether you have a play button overlay in the center, a poster frame, which is a really nice thing for people. Sometimes that's all you really need for customization, is to have some sort of poster frame before somebody plays the movie, right? You've got auto hide, auto play, auto loop, different scaling methods. So if the video isn't exactly the size of the window of the playback, you can tell it to letterbox or to stretch or whatever you want. And then skinning support. So that's going to be our focus here, is the skinning. And obviously it's free, it's open source and free, and we can grab it from here. There's documentation to look at as well, and we'll have a look at the documentation in a little bit. But let's go to the download page. And you see on this page, you've got a whole bunch of different options as far as what you might want to download. The latest version that's a release version is Strobe Media Playback 1.5.1. But you can see there's also a newer version called 1.6, and this is the Sprint 1 of 6. They release these different sprints. It's usually about 3 to 5 sprints before they do an actual release version. So if you want to stay safe, grab the release version. If you want extra features that are being worked on, that could potentially change before the release version. But if you just want to play with the latest stuff, you can grab the one of the sprints here. So 1.6 adds support for Flash Player 10.2 and stage video, as well as bug fixes and so forth. So if you click on this, you can download the full version, and you can download a PDF which describes how to implement it. So let's download that. And I've already actually done so. And what we'll have is a zip file of both the source and also previously compiled versions of it. And you can choose for Flash Player 10 or 10.1. So if we go in here, we can see there's a whole bunch of different files for demonstration. And if we go into the source folder, here you've got your source. And if we drill down, we can see it's a source that's sort of compiled or set up for Flash Builder. So you can use Flash Builder to compile this, make modifications to it, and stuff like that. But we're not going to be looking at this today, but it is there in case you're interested in it. We're going to be looking mainly at the actual compiled version of Strobe Media Playback. So if we look in here, you can see there's a bunch of different SWICs and some Swift files and things like that, some JavaScript, a whole bunch of HTML. If we go into Strobe Media Playback.html, this is going to take us to sort of the index page for that. And you can see we've got an overlay here, and this is the basic Chrome for Strobe. These here are different links that you can use to test a variety of things here. So let's click on this first one. So this is going to grab this F4M file, and it's the dynamic streaming file, which means depending on our bandwidth, it's going to serve up an HD version or not. There are a number of different versions in there. We can look at a progressive F4M. So this one isn't streaming. But again, it's able to do basic bandwidth detection. And these things are reliant upon Flash Media Server. So you're not going to just be able to use F4M files anywhere. As I mentioned, you can also do audio. So this is audio only. And here we've got some FLV files. And F4V, which is H.264. And you can see here we've got a buffering overlay and so forth. And you can also load in something like a JPEG. So there's that. There's a player setup option here too, which walks you through all of the different flash vars, embed parameters, different plugins that you can use, and here are some advanced parameters. So if we just preview an update here, we can see it gives us the embed variables and also some preview code that we can just copy and paste into a website. And it shows us how our player would look. If we were to go in here and change something, so let's say let's just change the width and the height. Or maybe the control bar. So the control bar can be docked or floated. It can be shown or not and so forth. So let's change that and preview. So you can see now it's a floating bar instead of one that's anchored to the bottom of the screen. So we have a lot of control over what we're doing here. And all of these different files are just part of that package. There's some jQuery stuff you can play with, playlists, libraries, images. So any of the images that are being used for like poster overlays and so forth are in here. So let's go in and actually see how to construct something like this on our own and customize it. So I'm going to go into Dreamweaver, and I've already got a basic file set up here, which is basically an HTML file. I've got a little bit of CSS up here, and I'm using what's it called? Swift object here to embed my Swift. And the only thing I'm really doing right now is passing in the source. So it's an RTMP stream that I'm passing in from one of these edge servers here. And that's basically it. And then I'm just embedding Strobe Media Playback.swift, which is also part of this whole group of files here. So all you really need is that right there, Strobe Media Playback.swift, to use this. So I'm pointing to that on a server somewhere, and I'm setting the width and the height, and I'm telling it to target 10.2, which you don't have to do. I'm just doing that here. And the only thing, again, that I'm customizing is I'm telling it where the source file lives. So it's an RTMP address coming off of a Flash media server. So let's have a look at this in the browser and see how it looks straight off here. All right, so here it is. And we'll hit play, and there we go. So we've got the basic Chrome that we saw before. And again, if I refresh this, there's no poster image, it's just black. So the easiest thing to do to customize something like this is to add a poster image to it. So let's open up Fireworks. And you can see here that I actually already set up a poster image. And the poster image I've set up is the same size that I actually used for my what's it called? For my implementation. And you can adjust this or whatever. It's just some texture and floral arrangements and things like that. So when I export this, I export it into here. This is the index file that I have, and here's my Fireworks poster file. And then under assets, I've got a poster.ping. So let's go off and tell our implementation that we want to use a custom poster file for this. So all I've got to do is add that to my flash vars. So you can see now I have flashvars.poster equals, and then it's a string pointing to that poster file on a server. So let's go back to Chrome, and we'll refresh. Oops. Here it comes. So now it shows me my poster frame. And once I play, it plays through just as normal. And if we were to go to the end here, and it stops, it jumps back to the poster frame. So this you could easily brand with your company or organization's logo and some messages and things like that to effectively skin the player, right? But we don't want to stop there. We want to change some other things. So two of the things that go a long way to customizing a player like this is changing this overlay button and changing the control bar down here. You can actually change any of these icons as well. Just about the only thing you can't change is the text, so the font that's being used there. So let's go in, and we want to add some other things to it. We can go in and say add some more flash vars to specify things like what is the recorded stream type. So we pass in stream type equals recorded. We could also do stream type equals live. And both of these implementations will allow us to target specifically live or recorded media streams. We can opt to output verbose error messages. We probably wouldn't want to do that in production, but while we're working on this thing, it might make sense to do so. You would have noticed as well on our poster frame, it didn't exactly fill up our entire player frame. That's because the control bar is given a certain amount of space. So let's auto hide the control bar, or let's not auto hide the control bar actually, because actually in my settings here, 720 by 512, I've allowed for space for that control bar, and you can see because of that, it's sort of pushing things around. When I refresh it now with control bar auto hide, you can see it looks a lot better. And here when we go to the end and it jumps back to the poster frame, it's actually filling up my frame nicely now. So that's control bar auto hide, and we set that to false, so it'll always be there. And again, it depends on what you're trying to achieve with your implementation, how you want to set these things up, right? If we go in, we can look at the actual documentation for Strobe. And again, this is a download from the same place we grabbed the source files from. If you remember, there was a little link to download this stuff. And it talks about the different features of Strobe Media Playback, system requirements, but most importantly, it talks about how to configure the player. So here are all the different options that I'm passing into FlashVars. So you can see here control bar auto hide set to true or false, and it gives a nice description about what each of those things do. You can set a timeout for that. The control bar position being docked, floating, or none. So if it was a live stream, potentially you wouldn't really have to have any control bar there, right? And then you've got things for the poster frame that we've seen, video overlays, and autoplay, muted volume. You can look through here. There's tons of different options you can use to configure Strobe Media Playback. And it also goes down into identifying different elements of the player. So you can see here, A being the play button overlay, B the control bar background. So all of these elements are replaceable through different skinning mechanisms. So control bar backdrop, backdrop right, left, and so forth. We can actually put these into FlashVars and specify new elements that way. But it makes it a lot easier if we use a custom skin for this. And of course, under replacing interface elements, we also have a demonstration of how we can go about setting up an XML file that informs the player when we load it in, different skins and where they belong in regard to the user interface. So let's do that right now. I'm going to open up Fireworks again. And here I've got a basic template that I've set up to customize the overlay and the control bar. So let's turn off our guides here, and you can see I've sliced this up in certain ways. If we zoom in, and that's zooming in quite a bit more than I wanted to, but if we zoom in, we can see that we've named these things play button overlay. Down here in the actual control bar, we've got some very thin slices. So we've got this one here, which is we might need to zoom in a little better on this. So these are like 2 pixel wide slices here. So this is a control bar center, control bar left, because we've got this black outline here, and then control bar right. So this will slice up those pieces for us and output them into whichever folder we want. And I've actually gone through and created 2 different states here as well. So I've got a rest state and a hover state, and that only really applies to this element here, our play overlay, so that when you mouse over it, it'll look a little bit different. It'll look interactive. It'll prompt the user to take some sort of action against it. Okay, so you just go to File, Export here, and you tell it to export your slices. And once you do that, I've got this assets folder with all my different slices, and we've seen the poster frame in there before, but now we've got control bar center ping, control bar left ping, right ping, and 2 play button overlays, one for rest and one for hover. So I've already created a custom skin here that points to all these different files. So you've got your skin node, which opens and closes the skin definition, and then you just have to specify a bunch of different element nodes with an ID that's particular to something that's expected by Strobe Media Playback. And here, again, are all the different IDs you can give any of these elements, and also the pixel measurements for each of these elements. Now you have to, it's pretty important to actually do this correctly. Like, for instance, have this be 5 by 2 pixels. If you make it larger or smaller than 5 by 2, it'll still work, but it's not going to look good. You're going to want to match these pixels exactly for any of these items that we're using here. If you remember, one of the some of the background stuff I was doing was actually 2 pixels wide. So the control bar stuff, 2 by 35, is basically what you do for each one of those. And this is something that you have to adhere to. So use that guide. You can see I'm creating a backdrop left and right, and pointing to those pings that I created. And for the play button, I'm setting normal down and over. And for down and over, I'm just setting it to the same hover image, right? Something else to note here is that I've got all these elements sort of nested within an actual elements node that defines a base path. That is a URL pointing to where these guys actually live. So if you don't have the base path, you just have to put the full URL into each source attribute in each element. So this makes it a little easier as well. So if we want to hook this up into our actual Strobe Media Playback component here, our implementation, all we need to do is point to it and reference it as flashvars.skin. And then you just go to whatever you named your skin file. In this case, I've named it customskin.xml. Okay? So let's go to here again and refresh. Okay, so immediately you can see that it has picked up all of those pings that I've used for skinning. My overlay works. And I've got that nice control bar that I've done here. And when I play, it works just like the normal implementation, but I've got this nice customized control bar here. And again, I go to the end, and it'll play and return back to our sort of stopped position, right? So using Fireworks and XML along with Strobe Media Playback, it's actually quite easy to go in and customize any of these things. You just have to, once again, be sure to grab a copy of the Strobe Media Playback PDF. That'll step you through in detail each one of these little things, because you can edit and customize any one of these little icons, any one of these components, again, except for any of the text components there.